Greetings, followers. This is Half Man, Half Cichlid. Today I'm going to talk to you about something that has revolutionized my hobby. I've been keeping aquariums for, I think it's 61 years. I hate to give away my age. And during all those 61 years, I have had cichlids. Cichlids are the fish I love. South America, Central America, Asian, African. I've tried all genre of cichlids, and I love them. Unfortunately, many of us feel like cichlids in a planted tank are an oxymoron. You can't use the two words in the same sentence because it's difficult to keep cichlids. It's generally accepted that it's hard to keep cichlids in a planted tank. However, I feel like I've conquered that problem. I now have 3 cichlid tanks that are very successful with plantings, and the one behind me is an example. It's a 200-gallon aquarium where I've got geophagus, I've got sveni, I've got Australian rainbows, and I've got angelfish. Now, each type of cichlid has its own consideration when setting up or contemplating setting up a planted tank. There are your diggers, like the geophagus, that unearth your plants. There are the shredders, like the African cichlids, who, although they don't eat the plants generally, they like to tear them apart and shred them, part of expelling their aggression. They're the plant eaters, the vegetarians that love plants and consume them. And lastly, there are the cichlids that leave plants alone and that plants are part of their natural surroundings, such as angelfish and some Tanganyikans that I have in another tank. But in any event, you can see the aquarium that I have behind me, where I've successfully been able to, all the cichlids are hiding right now, but where I've successfully been able to, maybe I'll give them a little food in a few minutes so you can see them better, but I've got 5 big geophagus in here. I've got probably 6 or 8 angels, and with some of the techniques that I'm using and that I've deployed in this tank that I'm going to share with you, I've been able to have a luxurious plant growth. Something I might add, by having a combo plant cichlid tank, I would say my joy and pleasure and interest and all that in aquarium has more than doubled. I love the plants, I love the fish, and sometimes when I come down in the morning to visit my aquariums and feed them, I find the first thing I'm looking at is the aquascape, the plants, and the driftwood, the overall beauty of the aquarium, and then the fish sort of fill in this beautiful picture. So I'd encourage cichlid keepers who maybe have avoided planting an aquarium to consider this. For me, it has enriched my hobby tremendously. I've been into plants now successfully for about 3 years. I've tried them for my entire time in the hobby with failure after failure. But I'll share with you here some of the things that I am doing to keep this success going. So anyway, without further ado, I'll get into the aquarium, this first aquarium, the 200 gallon, and give you some of the things that I'm doing to have what I consider to be the most beautiful, by far, aquarium I've ever had in my life. And again, it's because of the combination of it's a natural aquascape with plants, with driftwood, with fish, everything surviving, adding to that beautiful picture, everything living in harmony. So let's get to it. Okay, first of all, let's talk about the aquarium. It's a 7-foot, 200 gallon aquarium. The plants that I have in the tank are, there's Amazon swords. There's about 3 different types of Anubias. There's Java fern and some large crypts. Now I put a little food in the aquarium so that the angels have come out. So in this case, I'm successful because number one, I didn't put any shredders or plant eaters in the aquarium. I stuck with angelfish, which, they will spawn on the leaves of plants, but otherwise leave them alone. The geophagus, wherever they're hiding, I've got a number of 5, I should say, about 7 to 8 inches in here. Hopefully I'll get them to come out. There's a few of the geophagus. I put some of my extreme pellets in there, which they love. And so, again, I've got angelfish, which are snapping up some floating krill, and I've got some geophagus that are avid diggers, and of course the Australian rainbows. One thing about a planted aquarium like this, when I had about 10-15 angels in this aquarium without plants, there were a lot of attacks and even killings of angelfish. However, with the plants, what you create is a number of sections of the aquarium, for lack of a better word, or niches, where the competitive fish, the aggressive angels, at least when they're spawning, for example, or even the geophagus, they can create territories. Each of them creates their own territory and really reduces the aggression in the tank. So it's one great way to have fish that might otherwise be aggressive towards each other in the same aquarium, spreading them out, and each of them having the ability to create and maintain their own little territory. So the first secret is picking fish that aren't going to shred or eat your plants. But again, in the case of the geos, they are diggers, and I have a unique method that I've used to get around the geos digging the plants up. First of all, this may surprise many of you, but all the fish and, all the plants in this aquarium can be removed without disturbing their roots in about 15 minutes. So if I want to move all these plants to other aquariums, it's a very simple task. And the reason it's simple is the plants that would typically grow in a substrate, like the crypts and the swords, are actually grown in baskets. And, they're hidden by the anubias, so you really don't see them. But all these plants are in small pond baskets. And it also makes it easier to, if you want to do root tabs, stick the root tabs into the pots. So all the big plants in here are in the swords and crypts are in pond baskets. Now the other plants, the lower level plants, the anubias and the Java fern, are all epiphytes. They're attached to driftwood or stones. So you end up with a situation where I just have very little substrate on the bottom for the geos, because it's part of their nature to chew on and spit out. But for the most part, there is no substrate other than in the pots. And in the planted pots, like in the swords, what I do is I use Carib Sea Eco Complete. I plant them in the pots, and then I use round Mexican stones on top of the substrate in the pots so that the cichlids don't dig out or dig at the roots. So with this tank, in summary, I'm able to accommodate diggers, the geos, and more angelfish, because again, they're able to establish breeding territories and not kill each other. The second thing that I've done with this aquarium is adding carbon dioxide, CO2. If your water is like mine, high pH, high hardness, it's difficult for the water to hold on to much CO2, and you end up starving your plants. So I bubble CO2 into this tank. This tank has had CO2 for about a year, and it's unbelievable how much plant growth there is. In fact, I'm having to go in here every 1 to 2 weeks, trim the plants because otherwise the aquarium gets overgrown. The next thing I do is adding macro and micronutrients to the aquarium. Now I've got about 800 gallons in aquariums that are planted, so if I would, for example, use easy grain, it would drain my my budget for aquarium keeping. So, here's an example of micronutrients and iron, potassium, and I also make up a phosphate solution to keep phosphates at the right level. I have suggested to Corey at Aquarium Co-op that they produce a dry version, save all the shipping and the water, but that would certainly destroy one of their cash cows to sell these nutrients in a dry form. I've been able to do it. I've been able to optimize those nutrients to my water, and they're relatively very inexpensive when you do it this way, and I end up having to fill these gallons with solutions maybe once every 6 to 8 weeks. So that's a secret. Nutrients, macro and micronutrients. So in summary, secrets of a cichlid planted tank. You know, in my case, I kept away from the shredders and the plant eaters and focused on angels that don't tear them apart, and geophagus, which are one of my favorite fish, that are diggers. I've avoided the negative impacts of digging by using epiphytes, anubias, and java fern attached to driftwood and stones, and substrate plants like the crypts and the Amazon swords. I've planted them in baskets. I've also added CO2, which has revolutionized my plant aquarium plant keeping. I make my own nutrients, somewhat customized to what I know about my own water chemistry, hardness, pH, phosphates, nitrates, etc. Like I already mentioned, all the plants are in baskets. So anyway, if you have the time and you want to significantly increase the beauty of your aquarium and majorly improve the interest in your hobby, I'd highly recommend planted aquariums, number one. And number two, if you're into cichlids like I am, consider a couple of the secrets that I spoke of on how I was able to get angels and geophagus to do so well within this aquarium. Thank you. Half man, half cichlid.